Hello and welcome to this episode of Glow Heartfulness Webinars. GLOW is an acronym for Genuine Loving Outstanding Women, and it's a series of monthly webinar-based chat show to help women bring balance and harmony in the myriad roles that they play in today's society. GLOW is all about compassionately empowering women through the work done in the heart. It's offered by the Heartfulness Institute, and we teach heart-based meditation. That is, we meditate on the love and light in the heart and in the presence of yogic transmission or pranahuti, as they say in Sanskrit. This is made possible by the global guide Daaji through thousands of certified heartfulness trainers. Today on Glow, I have with me Clara Seeger. Hello, Clara. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Purnima. Thank you very much for having me.
So let me begin by introducing Clara. Dr. Clara Seeger is a highly experienced leadership coach, corporate facilitator, online course creator, speaker, and author specializing in mindfulness and meditation, neuroscience, and mental balance. Clara works with corporate executives and private individuals either on a one-to-one or on a group basis to help them realize higher levels of sustainable well-being by cultivating a more balanced mind. She's also produced a series of 4 online meditation courses focused on cultivating a balanced mind. In fact, today she's going to speak about balancing the mind, mental health, and sustainable well-being. So let me begin my first question to you, Clara. I would like to understand this concept about mental health, well-being, balancing the mind, sustainable well-being, and so on. What do all these terms mean, and how do we just make sense of all that is going on in the world when these words are concerned?
Thank you. Yes, that's a very, very relevant question at the moment, more than ever before, I think. In terms of well-being, I think when we talk about well-being, what we really mean is mental well-being. Obviously, our physical body can be in a state of health or in a state of disease and anywhere in between. But I think what's really relevant to us as human beings is our mental well-being, because if our body may be exceptionally healthy, but if we are depressed, we're not going to even feel that as being a state of well-being. So I think mental well-being is most important to us. And in terms of mental well-being, if you think about it, you can't have mental well-being if our mind is not healthy. So we need a healthy mind. And we can talk about what a healthy mind is, but a healthy mind has to be a mind that's in a state of balance. So we need a balanced mind, and we can discuss this in more detail to see what that really means. But if our mind is out of balance, our mental health is not going to be in an optimal condition. And if our mental health is not well, then it's very easy to see that, we can't really be well if we don't have mental health. So I think these three things are really, they feed into each other, and one is the basis for the next. And I think that's really important to understand. And in terms of mental health, I think mental health is a two-way street. There are two sides of the coin, and I think that doesn't really get enough attention in our society. The global pandemic has been a really interesting time to look at this in more detail. And I think the overwhelming emphasis has been and is on the external conditions, the difficulties that we've all been facing to varying degrees. The physical isolation, the health issues and concerns, the financial impact of the pandemic, the loss of freedom through all the lockdowns, the lack of distraction, entertainment, change of scenery, etc. And all these are stressors. They're external factors that have affected us and have affected our mind. And the mental health is all about the mind, is the health of the mind that we're talking about. So I think that's very easy to understand. And that's what a lot of the news reports and the news stories are about. How are we affected by these external circumstances? What's not so emphasized, and which I think is of crucial importance, is what is the mind that we are bringing to this reality, or to any reality, whether there's a pandemic or there's no pandemic. And because the mind that we bring to the situation has an enormous impact on our perception of reality, how we see the world, how we see ourselves, other people, and what's going on, and our state of mental distress or mental health and well-being. So it's of crucial importance to understand what this mind is that we're bringing to the situation before the external factors even come flooding in, if you see what I mean.
Thank you so much, Clara. Yes, that made a lot of sense. I would like you to explain this a little bit more. You spoke about external influences of various things on our mind, and you also spoke about the mind that we bring to the current situation. So, how do we really understand the difference between these two minds, or rather, how do we understand the difference between these two perceptions?
Yeah, great question. So for me, it all comes down to, if we think about what makes us vulnerable to suffering. So the question, why are we vulnerable to suffering? Is suffering just a function of the external circumstances that we are exposed to? And I think sometimes we think so. Of course we're suffering because we're in lockdown. Of course we're suffering. We've lost our job. We've got furloughed. We have financial issues. Of course we're suffering. We are exposed to health concerns and worries, and maybe we got sick. Of course we're suffering. We can't go anywhere. We have no entertainment. We can't see our friends or family, etc. Well, the thing is that we don't all suffer in the same way. And I think we all have examples of that, even within the same family, with the same external circumstances. People don't experience these situations in exactly the same way. And why is that? And what does that tell us? And I think what it tells us is that these external circumstances are catalysts. They are no doubt catalysts. They can trigger mental distress. They can trigger our suffering, make us feel bad and miserable and depressed. But are they the real cause? And that's the crucial point. There is a difference between something that catalyzes or can catalyze mental suffering and the real cause of suffering. And I think the real cause of suffering is internal. And that doesn't mean that it's our fault. It doesn't mean that we are to blame, but I think we need to be aware of the fact that the mind that we bring to the situation has a lot to do with the degree of suffering that we will experience. So my thesis here is that we suffer to the extent that our mind is out of balance. So it's a spectrum. The more out of balance our mind is, the more we will suffer at whatever the triggers are that will cause us, that will trigger our suffering. But if we have a more balanced mind, then we are stronger. We have a stronger psychological immune system, so that whatever the triggers are, whatever the catalysts are that will affect us, we will not be thrown out of balance. We will not suffer to the same extent. And so that's really where the power of meditation comes in, because meditation, when it's not just practiced as a way to alleviate the symptoms, when it's not just practiced to make us feel a little bit more relaxed, a little bit less stressed, a little bit less uptight, when it's really practiced in its full capacity, then it's really a cultivation of the mind. So what we're doing is we're cultivating our mind, and we're cultivating our mind towards a greater degree of mental balance. And there are 4 different areas in which we can do that.
Clara, during this pandemic, no doubt meditation has helped us all a lot. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I am participating in an ongoing study that looks at the impact of the pandemic on our mental health. And so I'm participating as a subject in the study, but I also know the researchers, and they've shared some interesting findings, which I'm happy to share with you. So during the pandemic, they looked at how it affects people who meditate versus people who don't meditate. And there are different practices and different ways of meditating and all that. But generally what they've found is that the people who have a regular meditation practice have experienced less depression, less anxiety, less stress, and less loneliness. And on the flip side, they've experienced better mental health. They've experienced more gratitude, for example, for the positives that have come out of the pandemic: less pollution, more meaningful social connections, even if they're not physical, but virtual or phone calls, Zoom, etc. And also more meaning, a greater sense of meaning. And I think that's interesting, and it confirms that notion that it's the mind that we bring to the situation that's the most important. When you cultivate your mind through meditation, you just come with a greater degree of mental balance, a better psychological immune system to help with whatever comes our way, because the pandemic in a way is only a difference of degree to the normal suffering that everyone is prone to. There's always there are financial problems, there are health issues, there are situations that are out of our control, whether there's a pandemic or not. So in a way, it's just exacerbated the whole situation.
Thank you so much, Clara. So, you keep talking about this balanced mind. You keep talking about the mind you bring to the situation. You keep talking about the differences between the influence of external factors on the mind. You use this word a lot called balanced mind. So,
Yeah.
what does it actually mean to have a balanced mind?
Yeah, great question. So that there are 4 areas of the mind that we can balance, that can be in balance or out of balance. And I would say for most of us, and I'm including myself here, we are in some state of imbalance. So the 4 functions of the mind can have 3 different imbalances for each of the 4 functions. And I'll just take you through the 4 functions because I think it'll just explain what that means, to have a balanced mind. And the first function of the mind has to do with our desires and our aspirations. So the question, what do you desire? What are you attached to? So our desires and aspirations can be in a state of imbalance when we have too little desire. If you've ever experienced any depression or low mood, I think we've all had some experience of that, then we just don't have enough desire. We don't want to get out of bed. Nothing interests us. Nothing drives us. Nothing fuels our passion. Nothing is worth striving for. And that's a state of having too little desire. That's not a happy place. But we can also have excessive desire and really want something so badly that we can't even enjoy the present moment because we are away chasing some dream. And even if there's nothing wrong with that particular goal or dream or aspiration, it's just it consumes us so much that we can't just enjoy the present moment. We can feel good at certain times, but it's actually not a happy place. It's not a balanced place. You might feel happy for a moment, but it's not balanced because there's too much and we can't just be where we are right now. There are desires that are just in and of themselves not conducive to our well-being. So imagine an example would be, we're all getting older. We might get gray hair. We might, we get some wrinkles. If our desires are to look good and young, and that's our most burning desire, well, that's not conducive to our well-being. The older we get, the harder it will be to get any joy out of this desire, because it'll be harder and harder to achieve that, and impossible, in fact. So that will be a desire that's actually not a very healthy desire. Of course, we all want to look young, but if that's really what the main focus of our desires is about, then this is going to make us miserable. And in the pandemic, just to give a topical example, if our desire is to to travel, to see friends, to socialize, to go to the theater, to go to the cinema, to go to music concerts, to just, be out and about. And suddenly we have to stay at home in lockdown. Well, that's going to be a very unhappy state of mind if all our desires have just been cut, have been taken away from us. We can't get any of that. Well, and then we suffer because our desire was in a way not very wise. Of course, it's natural to want all of these things, but if that's our desire, our burning desire, it can really make us miserable. And even if we don't have a pandemic, we don't have full control over all these factors of what the outside world is doing, what the economy is doing, what other people are doing. So it's very important to see that we have limited control, and things are also impermanent. We might get what we want today, but tomorrow we may not, and then are we going to be upset? And we usually are. So that's how the first function can be out of balance. And it's really crucial to be aware of that. And I think we're not very wise as a society in terms of what desires are worth cultivating and what desires may actually lead to suffering.
What do you suggest? How do we go about it? We are not always wise. We are human beings. How do we know what can be wise, what can be foolish?
What's important is to have wise desires. Okay, so we should have desires, but we need to be wise about which, have this. There is a term, cognitive intelligence. Conation is this term that explains that describes our desires, our aspirations, our intentions, our motivations in life. So this is called conation, and it's really we need to develop cognitive intelligence, by which I mean developing and cultivating the desires that are wise. And this is very much actually what my first online course that I've just launched is about. It's about developing and cultivating wise desires through insight, through wisdom, but also through meditation. They go hand in hand. And so what is really helpful is if we want to get greater balance here and have wiser desires, to shift our focus from what we want and can't get, or what we get and don't want, what we can get from the outside, from other people, from the situation, from the weather, from our life, from our bank balance, from wealth, from social media, whatever it is, anything that we want, can we shift that focus away from what we can get to what we actually bring? So that will be an example of a wise desire. So part of my practice is to set an intention in the morning. So I do my meditation and I set an intention when I finish of how I want my day to go. And rather than setting an intention saying, well, I hope I'll get this, and I hope someone else will visit me, or I hope I'll get likes on my latest posts, or I hope this will turn out well, I shift that focus and I cultivate the desire, may I be in a state of balance. May I bring my best self to the situation. May I be helpful to others. May I control or regulate my emotions, my temper. And so the focus is, I desire to be the best self, my best self, to bring the best I can bring to whatever situation is. So if someone insults me, or someone is rude to me, or doesn't like me, or things don't turn out the way I want, I bring the desire that I will bring the best I can bring. And that's something I can have some control over. And I will have more control over it the more and the better I meditate. And that's one of the reasons that I do meditate, to be able to do that better.
I've heard people say that, my mind is too active to meditate. What do you think about that?
Well, that's interesting, because that brings me to the second function of the mind, which has to do with attention.
Oh,
What we
wonderful.
what we attend to and how we attend to it, because it's really important to be aware that we experience the world through what we attend to. William James, the father of modern psychology, actually said, for the moment, what we attend to is reality. So from moment to moment, we are creating our reality through the way we pay attention and through what we pay attention to. We are only paying attention to a fraction of all the available stimuli. We couldn't possibly process everything that is available out there, even just looking at the world around us. So we are, in every moment, we're paying attention to something. And so this attention is therefore a choice. But most of us don't realize it's a choice, because we are just drawn to whatever screams the loudest in our environment. So we're paying attention to whatever is most obvious for different reasons. But so attention is something that's really important, and it can be out of balance. We can lack attention because we are a bit dull, for maybe we're tired and our mind is a bit dull. I think we've all experienced that, when we can't really focus and sustain our attention on whatever the object is, something we're reading, or even a conversation, we're just glazing over, etc. Or we can have an overactive mind, which is what you just mentioned, and our mind just gets carried away with whatever thought pops up in our mind. Or it could be social media, or it could be the phone beeping, and notifications coming up, or any physical stimulus, or aches and pains in our body, whatever it may be. We get carried away, and we get carried away from whatever we're doing to something else. And our mind is so active that we can't maintain the focus. Or we can have another imbalance, which is the one where we are having a skewed attention, when we're, for example, in the pandemic, just a negative focus, negativity bias, when we only notice and attend to negative stimuli, negative news flow about the pandemic and the number of deaths and all the depressing news that's come out, and only paying attention to that will get us depressed as well. So that will be an imbalanced mind. But in terms of what you're asking, I think the first step to understanding, to being able to control our attention a little bit, is to become aware of how our mind gets hijacked, and how busy our mind is, and how our mind is just carried away to different stimuli, thoughts, memories, whatever it is. And so that awareness, when people say to me, I can't meditate, my mind is too active, I kind of want to congratulate them. Well done, you've noticed. Because that's the situation we all, that's our baseline. Most of us come with that kind of mind. That's unfortunately our sort of normal state. And it's a dysfunctional state, but it's normal, right? So we all have that, and there are different degrees. Some have it more, some have it less, some have attention hyperactivity. I think we all have hyperactivity and attention deficit to a certain extent. In a sort of meditative way, we can't control our attention completely. And the first step is to notice what the mind is doing, and then to relax, first of all. Just relax. Don't get uptight about it. Don't fight it. Don't be upset about it. Don't reject it. Don't, just notice it. That's the first step. And it's a key quality of our mind to notice that. And so well done if you notice that. And then we can start cultivating it. But it's part of the whole cultivation is to work with that, to learn to notice, and then to bring our attention back to whatever we're attending to. And we can all learn that. And so I think everybody can learn that.
What is the third function of the mind? You spoke about the desires, you spoke about attention.
Do we perceive reality? And by reality, I mean everything. Ourselves. How do we see ourselves, our mind? How do we see other people? How do we see the world? Everything. So it's about perception, and how objectively are we perceiving? Because we can get biased. We all bring a lot of biases to the situation, and the biases, we can have too much, we can have too little perception in a way. So we can have a deficit because we don't see what's there in plain sight, right? We have a blind spot. How often does that happen? We just don't see. Sometimes I'm looking for my phone and I'm holding it. Well, that's like a cognitive bias, right? It's a cognitive deficit. I don't see what's in plain sight, not because I'm not paying attention, but because I have some cognitive blockage temporarily. And sometimes we don't notice things that people say to us because we have a blind spot of some sort. Sometimes we do the opposite. We have this cognitive hyperactivity where we're projecting something onto reality that's actually not there. And then we see what we're projecting, thinking that that's what's really there. We're confusing what we project and what's presented. And I think that often happens as well. And there's some, in the pandemic, I had lots of opportunity to start to kind of observe all the imbalances of the mind, my own and other people's as well, but also my own. And and I've also, in terms of the cognitive imbalances, the how to do with our perception, I thought of these two examples of, there's the conspiracy theories about the pandemic. We've all heard them. There are multiple ones floating around, and that will be a sign of superimposing something onto reality which is not there until proven, of course. But something we project that this is what happens. It's not really there, and then we're confusing what we're projecting. We're believing it rather than seeing that it is not the same as what the facts say. That's one example. And an example of a sort of blind spot is, lots of people who deny that the pandemic that coronavirus is there, that it's serious, that the hospitals are full, etc. And that will be a cognitive blockage, a blind spot. We don't see what's there, right? And of course, there's a mixture of the two, which can completely distort. You can have a deficit and then you superimpose something to fill your ignorance. You're projecting something and then you're getting completely a skewed perception of reality. So that's the third one. And any type of bias is about our perceptions of reality, and that they're not objective, they're not free of bias. So, and that's, all of these, the four functions and the balance or the imbalance, they're making us unhappy. Sooner or later, we will have a rude awakening. Sooner or later, we will clash with people about these, especially, if you think of the biases, people will disagree with us. Reality will give us a rude wake-up call, and we will realize, oops, we completely misapprehended reality, and that's not a happy place. So yeah, so that's where the perceptions, objective perceptions of reality come in as the third function. And then there's the fourth function, which I think we're all much more aware of, which is about our emotions and what emotions we have, which ones are prevalent in our psychological makeup, if you like, and how well are we able to regulate them, emotional intelligence. And I think we are much more aware of these. That's much more in our understanding, in our awareness. There are instances where we're not displaying enough emotions. We might be a bit numb. Sometimes we don't, certain medications I've heard lead to a state of everything feels the same. Everything is, we don't have a nuanced emotional response to reality. And that's experienced as not a very pleasant state from what I hear. And I'm not an expert on this, but I've heard that people who are taking some sort of medication that has this effect are not enjoying not having a full range of emotions. It's not a happy situation. But then, of course, we don't really enjoy being overreacting to situations either. If we ever had an outburst of anger or a sort of disproportionate reaction, overreacting to something, it's not a happy place, and it usually gets us into trouble. It's not conducive to our well-being or to that of other people. So regulating the emotions is really important. And then, you know, some emotions are just more toxic than others, and some are more wholesome than others. You know, if I feel a lot of hatred, a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, that's not a very happy situation to be in. I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy feeling, you know, full of hatred or resentment. And other people who are the object of our of our emotions are also don't tend to enjoy those. So yeah, so that's how the fourth area can be out of balance, and it can be a very difficult place to live when it is out of balance, and it can make us unhappy. All of these four, if they're not balanced, and usually we're prone to different imbalances and a combination of different imbalances at different times. Even in the same day, we can go through different imbalances, display different imbalances, because we haven't cultivated our mind properly yet. And so it's a spectrum, and it's also something that we can develop and cultivate through meditation. And so with meditation, we can help ourselves and cultivate a more balanced mind.
So, Clara, thank you so much. You spoke a lot about the mind being in balance, and you also mentioned about how there is this small situation or opportunity or circumstance where it can go out of balance. So, I was just wondering, how do we just stop ourselves from reaching that threshold where our mind goes out of balance? It's so simple when you actually speak all this, but when it comes to the practice of it, how can we stop our mind from going out of balance is something which might require practice. I don't know, like what do you have to say about it?
Yeah, it's interesting. So for me, it's my working hypothesis is that most of the time, most of our minds are out of balance. So that's what we tend to bring to the table. But there are obviously different degrees, and then we get triggered, and the triggers catalyze something that's already there, which is our imbalanced mind, right? So the first thing is really to get an experiential understanding of what it feels like to have a balanced mind. And we can get that really well through meditation. And there's certain practices, well, all of the practices balance the mind, but they balance different functions, etc. But when we practice and we sit on the cushion, on the chair, wherever, and we practice for any length of time. It could be 10 minutes, it could be 5 minutes even, or longer. The longer the better, of course, but anything will help. And we get a sense of, yes, I'm in a relative, it's relative, okay? When I'm in a relative state of balance right now, I'm not desiring anything excessively other than wise desires. I just want to bring my best self to the day, you know, and it's easy to connect with that when we're sitting on the cushion in the morning and nothing has hit our attention yet. We're just sitting there and we're cultivating our mind, and we're calm and peaceful. Nothing has happened to trigger us. And it's easy to cultivate that, wholesome desires of, I want to bring my best self. I want to be the best I can be. I want to be loving and compassionate and calm and objective, etc. And so we know how it feels when we do that. We sit there in the morning, let's say, and we cultivate that. So we get an experiential feel of it. We can also get a feel for how it feels to have our attention relatively balanced, so that we can, let's say we're doing mindfulness of breathing. We're just breathing in and out, and we are just staying with the breath. And occasionally it gets hijacked, occasionally we get a bit dull, but then we bring it back and we have a sense of how it feels to have a balanced mind in terms of our attention. We're also, we're just perceiving the world around us, and nothing has triggered our biases in a particular way. And we get a sense of how it feels to be relatively objective in our perceptions. And of course, early in the morning, let's say we're sitting there and we're not feeling angry, we're not feeling any strong emotions. It's easy to feel that my emotions are fine. I have no particular issues. And so this experiential sense, when we're sitting on the cushion doing any type of meditation, getting that sense of, this is my baseline of relative mental balance. I'm in relative balance in all these 4 areas. And then during the day, keep an awareness. Oops, suddenly I'm getting a bit angry. Oh yeah, my emotions are a bit out of balance. Or I'm getting a really strong reaction. I'm seeing this politician on the TV and I'm feeling like, oh my God, they're to blame for all this. They've handled it badly. And then you feel that bias coming in. So my perceptions are, oops, I notice that when it happens, right? And then, our attention, we can't focus our attention and we notice, oops, I'm getting so distracted because, so in all of these 4 areas, we can bring greater awareness if we cultivate this I call it on the cushion, but you can do it in any position and any situation. But when we cultivated this relative balance of the mind through meditation, we are much more aware when our mind gets out of balance during the day. And so when that happens, we can kind of adjust. In all these 4 areas, we can do something to adjust our and address our imbalances and redress the balance. And so we can do something, but the key is to notice it, and we can notice it much better when we have an idea of what it feels like to be in balance. Because I think we're going through the days so out of balance that most of us have no idea what it actually feels to be in balance. And that's where meditation can really help.
You were just telling me earlier about your online course. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm doing a series of 4 online courses, and I've just launched the first one. And these relate to the 4 different keys to mental balance. So the first course, which is called Discover the Wellspring of Sustainable Wellbeing, it's all about the first type of balance of our desires and aspirations, so that we can develop greater wisdom in the types of desires and aspirations we cultivate through our meditation and in our lives. Because what we need to know for that is what really makes us suffer. What is the reason that we are so vulnerable to suffering? What are the factors that lead to greater suffering? And what are the factors and the mindset, the mental habits that lead to greater well-being? And so in this course, we explore the real causes of suffering and of well-being and how they're different from the catalysts. We touched on that today, so that we go into much greater detail to really not just intellectually understand this, but really explore this in our lives and explore this through meditation and strengthen that, so that we can cultivate greater cognitive balance, greater balance of our desires and aspirations. And that will help us cultivate greater mental balance, but it will help us also deal with adversity when it comes up, because we know how to perceive that, how to relate to that, and how to respond to that. Because adversity will happen sooner or later. We can't, as we were saying, whether there's a pandemic or not, there are always situations in our lives where other people don't behave the way we want to. Our health doesn't always behave the way we want to. We're getting older, we're getting more prone to illnesses. Other people treat us badly. Our, popularity, our wealth, our prestige will go up and down, and it's always largely out of our control. So it's really important to know how to deal with the adversity when it arises. And the more we can cultivate wiser desires, wiser aspirations, what our life should be about, and how we can, tap into that and cultivate and sustain that during our lives. That's what really helps us tap into this idea of sustainable well-being, so that we're not just well when there's no pandemic, but we can be well anytime. And that doesn't mean being happy and, laughing when people are dying. It doesn't mean that. It means that our mental balance is not thrown off. We can keep a degree of composure, of mental balance, whatever life throws at us, and it will sooner or later. So that's what the first course is about, to understand, what is it that really is the key to happiness, to sustainable well-being, because we all want that. We don't want to just be happy today and not be happy tomorrow, right? No, nobody says, I don't care about sustainable well-being, I just want to have a good day. Yeah, and then tomorrow, do you want to have a bad day tomorrow? No, you don't. So that's what it's about. And I think that's not really very emphasized nowadays, because we just, we don't focus on that idea of sustainable. We focus on sustainable economies, sustainable energies, etc., but sustainable well-being, that's what's really going to shift the needle for each and every one of us. So it's important to have an idea of that.
So cool the way you said sustainable well-being. I'm a fan of this new coined phrase. So for those of you who would like to check out her course, it's available on the link below and also on the screen, enlightened-leaders.com/wellspring. You can go and check out her course. For those of participants who want to find more about your work, about what you do, how can we go about it?
People can visit my website, enlightenedleaders.com with a hyphen. And on that, I have some free resources as well. So if people are interested in checking out the 4 keys to a balanced mind, and looking at the details of that and the different types of imbalances that can come up and how that might relate to everyone. So there's a free webinar on my website that you can find, and you just listen to it at your own pace. So that's available. And I also created a free mini course, which it's about 75 minutes long, and people can access it and go through it at their own pace again. And it's a kind of preparation for the first online course that I've created on the sustainable well-being. So this is to prepare yourself, to kind of show you where you're at and what the issues are. And I take people through a guided practice, a guided meditation. It's an ancient one, and I go through it in 3 different stages, and I unpack the meditation instruction, explain how it's done, why it's done, what the reasoning is, and how it relates to our well-being. And so that's a really kind of step-by-step approach to learning one meditation, which is really tremendously helpful for cultivating a balanced mind. I mean, if you only learn one meditation, this is the one I would recommend, because it's simple, but it's nuanced, and it has a lot of detail. So I'm trying to explain that, and it's something that one can learn and integrate into one's life. And if there's one meditation I would recommend, then I would say this is the one to practice. And it's about restoring a natural state of balance, of equilibrium in body and mind. So it's a great starting point.
For those of you who are interested, the link is available on the comments below and also on the screen. So please go and check out her courses. So Clara, as we speak about a balanced mind, and as we come to the close of this webinar session, I would like to offer a session of heartfulness, relaxation, and meditation. And I don't have to explain the benefits of meditation or a balanced mind or a relaxed state of mind well enough, because that's what exactly you've done for the last 1 hour. So with that foundation, let's have a session of heartfulness, relaxation, and meditation. And none of you need to have any prior experience to go through this. Just follow the commands which I'm going to give and get your body in a relaxed state. And towards the end of the relaxation, allow yourself to go deep into your heart and feel the presence of love, feel the presence of light in your heart. So shall we begin?
Sounds lovely.
Sit comfortably and close your eyes. Let's begin from the feet. Wiggle your toes, relax your toes, relax your feet. Feel an energy from Mother Earth rising through your feet, relaxing your legs, relaxing your knees. And as it moves up, it relaxes your thighs and hips. It gently moves up and relaxes your lower back and upper back. Gently feel this energy moving up, relaxing your stomach, chest, shoulders, and this energy moves through your arms, relaxing your forearms, your elbows, your wrist, your palm, fingers, and this energy oozes out of your fingertips. Your palms are completely relaxed. Your hands are completely relaxed now. Gently feel this energy relaxing your neck, the tension in your neck is dissolved. The muscles are completely relaxed on your neck. This energy moves up, relaxing your face, facial muscles, your jaws, cheeks, ears, lips, nose, eyes, forehead, till the tip of your head. All the parts of your body are completely relaxed now. Gently scan your body. If any part needs relaxation, allow this energy to move there and relax your body. As you slip into this completely relaxed state, slowly bring your attention to your heart. Please suppose the presence of love and light in your heart. And let's meditate on the light in the heart. If your attention wanders, gently bring your attention back to the light in the heart. And this light is pulling you deep within. And continue meditating for a few minutes. Let's meditate together. Please open your eyes when you're ready. Thank you so much, Clara, for joining us today in this webinar.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and really enjoyed this. That was a very balancing meditation.
It's nice. It's nice to me.
Yeah.
I thank all the participants who have joined us today. And if you have any questions for Clara, or if you want to know more about her courses, you can log in and check out her website, which is present as comments in the below section. You can always write to us at glow@heartfulness.org, GLOW, and we'll put you in touch with Clara. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you for the webinar. Thank you for the participation. Until next time, goodbye and have a nice day.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Purnima.
Do you have any closing thoughts, Clara?
Closing thoughts. Yeah. I just think that this is one of the most worthwhile endeavors we can do to cultivate our mind, to find greater mental balance and greater mental health, and not just for ourselves, but for everyone we interact with, because that's what we bring to the table, right? That's what we always bring to the table. our mind, and that's how we interact with the world. So the better our mind is, the more balanced it is, the more well it is, then the more benefit we can bring to the world, the better our relationships, the greater the impact we can have, positive impact on the world. So yeah, so I encourage everyone to cultivate their mind, and I know your listeners are doing that anyway, because your meditation was really wonderful as well in bringing about a state of balance. So now that we've done that, we can take that into the rest of our day and remember how it feels, and then notice when we lose that. So that's kind of my takeaway from what we've been discussing and from doing the meditation.